Instagram Live.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for showing up to the very first, I don't want to say historic, just very blessed event that we're about to have tonight. We've got some great people. We've got a packed house. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen? We want to make this a regular thing at Dos Hermanos. We want to build up community. We want to share culture. We want to support businesses. And we want to heal. We want to do all the things that we need to do to come back together as a community and show the world how great San Antonio just is. Now, very first, we've got a great guy. His name's David, and he wants to present some prose, poetry? What we got?
Yeah.
Yep. You heard the man. Yeah. Let's do it. Let's go.
All right. Does that work? Yeah. I want to thank Dos Hermanos Coffee House. I want to thank everyone for showing up. This is put on by the staff here and the neighbor, Rolando. Rolando's a neighborhood guy and insisted on doing this, and then the staff got involved, the community got involved, and here we are on a Saturday night about to do a reading. This is a quick flash fiction story. It's about 4.5 minutes long. It's called Nothing But Blue Skies, and it's a San Antonio story. Here we go. On my 7th birthday, my grandmother, Mama Locha, gave me a sky blue shirt with fluffy clouds on it. She bought it in San Antonio at an art gallery and said it was hand-painted. It was one of a kind. Every day brings a different sky, but your sky will always be bright blue with fluffy clouds, she said. She gave me washing instructions: wash in cold water, let hang dry, so it stay bright blue. She believed she'd take care of clothes and pass them on to people that you love. I'd go with her to Goodwill, and she'd look at dresses and coats, and they would say, "Where do you think these have been? Weddings, parties, chilly nights by the fire? They all tell stories." People tell stories, and the clothes they wear hold memories. Your great-grandmother made my wedding dress, and your mother wore my wedding dress at her wedding. Maybe one day your sister will wear my dress at her wedding. See, we pass on our clothes, and they carry love. I love the sky blue shirt, but I love one thing more: my dog, Crazy Loco. He was great and followed me everywhere. He'd walk in front of me and sometimes behind me, but we always made sure we kept an eye on each other. I guess we'd say he was my best friend. My other best friend lived a few blocks away, and I'd walk to his house to play with Crazy Loco. One night I stayed a little too long at my friend's house. I'm walking back in the dark. But I wasn't afraid, because I had my neighborhood. I knew my neighborhood really well, and Crazy Loco was with me. He was a brave dog, and though he never really barked, and certainly never bit anyone, I think he'd do both if you got him mad enough. I decided to walk the River Street, and the dog was right behind me. Then I heard him whimper. I never heard my dog whimper before. I stopped, took a step, and he looked like he was limping on his left paw. "Hey, buddy, you okay?" I said. Crazy Loco took another step and whimpered again. I thought maybe he had a sticker or a thorn in his paw. I walked to him, kneeled and looked at his paw, and it was so dark I couldn't see too well. But there was a dim light in the street, so I carried him to the light, felt under his paw, and I could feel warm water covering my hand. But as I put my palm to the light, I saw lots of blood. I looked down at Crazy Loco and could only imagine the pain he was in. I looked for a rag or anything to stop the bleeding, but all I had was my sky blue shirt. I didn't think twice. I took it off and wrapped his paw and did my best to carry him home. When I got home and walked inside the house, the first thing Mom said was, "Why didn't you have my shirt on?" I led her outside and told her Crazy Loco had cut his paw and needed bandages. "I used my shirt to stop the bleeding," I said. "Are you crazy?" my mom said. "That's an expensive shirt your grandmother bought you, and now you've ruined it on that dog." But I said, Crazy Loco was bleeding. I had to do something, I said with tears in my eyes. I said, Mom, please help him. Mom was in a hospital and knew how to dress wounds. But she was right about the shirt. My sky blue shirt was soaked in blood. I put it in a cold wash and hung it in a chair to dry. The next day, it still had white blotches all over it. Mom shook her head. You better tell him what you did to that shirt. My grandma lived across the street, and when I showed her the shirt and explained what I did for Crazy Loco, she put her hands together. She said, you gave Crazy Loco the shirt right off your back? I said, I had to do something. He's my best friend. I said, Mama Locha, are you mad at me? She grinned and pointed to the sky and said, Mira. I looked up at the bright clouds, and she said, Mijito, that will always be your sky. Thank you.
We had some sign up already, Francis. And yes, Francis, you are up. But
Francis, go get him!
Been doing readings in San Antonio a long time, very long time. Trinidad Sanchez got me.
Oh, yeah. I remember.
Long time. It's wonderful to be here with all the wonderful support, la gente de la raza de San Antonio, my home, my love. I'm going to start with an incantation. I like to call them incantations. In the wild wood. Tonight these woods become waves, and I am the fossil in the stone of an ancient knowing. We seek the darkness of the cave, what it knows, what it believes, its truth. Deep in the wild forest, we find the gold of Cortés, the lost gospels of wayward disciples. The corpse flower in perpetual bloom. We find our reflection in the quiet, unsuspecting breeze. When I was, I guess,
yeah, you're right.
several years ago, I went to a wedding, and before when I would go to weddings, I never really cried. You know, I just kind of thought, oh, look at the wedding. And this one time, this after our beautiful daughter was born, and she was dancing all night. She's probably mortified to say that, but she's dancing all night. And at this particular wedding, I found myself bawling for the first time. Right, I was just bawling at this wedding. It was so beautiful. It was so perfect. It's perfect gathering of love and family. And I just was, I guess I was in my early 40s. And I thought, what is wrong with me? What's going on? I couldn't stop. And so, again, early 40s, so I don't know, can't do math, I don't know what year that was. But it was a little less than 10 years ago. And so after all these events that are becoming so strange to us now, and this poem is called, When Did I Start to Cry at Weddings? Was it when the towers fell? Maybe it was when 6 teachers and 20 first graders woke up one morning and went to school. Maybe it was when the lights were dimmed and the bass is pumped and the pills are passed around at that frat house. Or when the door of the boxcar of the train closes and the beast, la bestia, stays hungry. Or perhaps it was when that tiny particle of me that flew towards the sun when the air was on fire in Nagasaki and is still lost over Atlantis, hoping to find its rest under forgotten kingdoms. We are all looking at her with ridiculous hope, and it escapes through muscles and bones and water and it flutters across continents like monarchs, and it leaves footprints in wind, and it is inhaled by the girls in Pakistan who hide their books and papers. She is wrapped in lace and tulle, silks and prayers and songs, and children carrying leaves and petals and stems. When did I first begin to collapse, watching her ascend toward him? Why does this marriage transport me to an eternal spring that ruptures and pushes and blooms into insufferable beauty? And when the rabbi, the priest, the shaman, chief, pastor, calls for my amen, my blessing, my chant, calls for me to raise my hand and my voice, my arms, calls for me to kneel at the altar of the lovers. I am as devoted as any pilgrim would be to the goddess. How can I not look at her? Her light fills me. She blinds me. And it is through her I too ascend, and I become bright light. I return to the silent joy. I return to the silent joy far in the travels of space, where my mother now lives, and where I will forever be in love with my poet savior. I don't have to wait like the Ferlinghetti lovers. Through her, I am the great, indelible home. And the souls of children and teachers and girls aren't allowed to read, and the towers that fell into that night sky, and the beast that will always stay hungry, will come forth to the goddesses of all the nations, and we will dance, and we will cry. Another happy one for you. My mother passed away in 2007, and so it took several years before you could kind of gather yourself and sort of wake up one morning and things sort of seem normal. And this poem is called Return. It's about returning after your mother, who don't all have perfect relationships with our mothers, but then she's your mom, and you're like, Mom, oh my God, what do I do, right? And I remember I was adjunct faculty one year at the one semester at SAC, and it was the spring. She passed away in the fall, and it was the spring, and I was driving home, and I used to call her on the way from home in the car, and I was about to pick up the phone in the car. Don't judge me. I was about to pick up the phone in the car, and right? You can't. No, I guess I can't do that. So several years later, you remember and you think like, oh wow, it's night and I haven't thought of my mother. This was years later, right? Years. So this one is called Return. But where do we really return to? And then where are we going, right, to return? Right? We're all going to return someplace, somewhere. It happens slowly though. Right? It happens slowly. Poetry returns slowly. Often begins with the death. One great final exhale. And then nothing. For 3 years, the language of beauty and consequence left upon the death of my mother. She dreamt in poems. Her broken body was a poem. Her longing to be weightless, a poem. And now she's left. But she's now weightless. She's more beautiful than ever. She does not return. She does not look back to the faces she left behind. She's gone. She's done. Her love, her poems, now a part of all that ever was, all that ever will be, poetry returns slowly. When sunlight and rain and the final freeze of spring take over your life without consent, and you are forced to acknowledge the sun, and you are forced to acknowledge the rain, it returns when you realize you're no longer sad. When the chasm created by the death of your mother seems to have suddenly healed. Not closed. It never closes. It just heals. The way a broken finger or a broken toe heals. It's imperfect and it's crooked. And as we fumble back into our lives without our mothers, poetry returns slowly. Fumbling, but somehow smarter. Smarter, but always sadder. Always sad. But somehow healed. Poetry returns slowly. Or maybe it returns because you wake up every morning next to your first and only great love. He is true love. He is pure love. He whispers love. He touches love. My great and only love. Poetry returns slowly. It returns with rain. It returns in dreams. And it returns in laughter and light. It whispers to you. It touches you. It calls you at morning. Good morning, my love. It's morning. You're going to love this one. So this is a poem I wrote for our daughter, Francesca, when she was about 3 years old. 2 or 3. 1, 2, or 3. I don't know. One of those years. And she for a while she was very much obsessed with owls, which we all know. And this is when she was about 3 years old. And so as we all know, like owls are very kind of mystical creatures. And they are part of the stuff of urban legends, stuff of myths. And so this poem is called She the Owl.
She the Owl.
Owl.
Can't take you nowhere.
And this is why we can't have nice things. I'm just poetry here. She.
No.
You didn't check the title again, the same way.
You didn't check the title. You check the title.
Orlando.
You can't hear. It's a problem.
She calls every bird in the sky
No.
an owl. Every bird was an owl. Is that an owl? Yes. Is that an owl? That's an owl. Some ratchet vulture. Is that an owl? Yes, that's an owl. And at dusk, when hundreds of blackbirds gather along the lines of telephone wires, she says, owl, owl, owl. And sometimes she even makes the ooh, ooh, ooh sound. And I'll look across that apocalyptic evening of orange and pink and blue and see all the owls that ever were flying silent in the sky, hovering, serpentining over this dead city. And they rest, they watch buildings and wires, locked up houses, desperate city trees. I always believed they watched this child who stepped out of bright light and into the flight of owls. And if I were to turn away from her for the slightest moment, carry her off, infant car seats and all, they would take her to the homeland of owls, and she would speak like the spotted barn, like the desert, snow. And she would know the thoughts of owls. begin to live at night. She would, in turn, she just might become a great and glorious owl. And when Athena takes notice of this half owl, half girl Messiah, Athena will call her, fall deeply in love with her, and will rename her as goddess of fire and light. And I'll be her mother no more. And this creature, made from volcano and prickly pear, she will glide over the new worlds. She will fly through the bodies of new races. She will leave tiny fires inside. I'm in absolute love with American Romanticism, which was a tiny period in American literature. It was tiny. British literature Romanticism was like that, and then American, Romanticism was like that. Tiny period, right? Edgar Allan Poe tends to fall into that sort of category. American Romanticism, very tiny. So I love the rhyme schemes of the Romanticism, of the Transcendentalist Romantics, which is another niche. It's a tiny slip. It's a splinter group of a splinter group. And so this is a poem I wrote again for Jessica, and I wrote this upon her third birthday. In times of new and times of old, we somehow know stories that have always been told. We know of the hero who must return home. We know of the animals who far away roam. We know about kings and the ships out at sea. We know about gardens and the flights of the bees. And deep in the night, she closes her eyes, and stories unfold under blue-like skies. And as she travels through her childhood's sleep, it is always the story within she will keep. Happy storytelling. Keep telling stories.
All right, everybody. I know we've got some newcomers that have just rolled in, and some of us, we got to get a little coffee in us to maybe get in the spirit, get in the mood, get loose. I also want to get more names of people, so we're going to have a little intermission for a few minutes, if that's all right, so people can get some coffee in them, get some orders in, and we have everything good. Thank you, sir. All right, everybody. All right. Well, we appreciate everybody showing up. As a destination. Glad that everybody, again, we've got a few more. Next up, we've got Susan. And Susan, let's find out. What's your genre? What do you do?
This is poetry.
Poetry.
Thank you, John. Yeah. Thank you, those Hermanos, for letting us do this here. Thank you to my brother, Ronaldo Vicente, who got this idea going, and all of you beautiful people. Shut up. Like in 2 days' notice. Just to say something about myself, I know a lot of you, but I don't know a lot of you. I am from San Antonio, but I live in Norway. And I'm here now, and this is my home. Okay, so it feels right. And seeing all of you beautiful people here, you will hear how much I love you in the poems that are coming, because I thought since it was so close to Valentine's Day, it had to be about love. And living a long life, and knowing how difficult it is to face the complexities of the injustices that we live with every day, we have to keep the love going. So I'm not embarrassed anymore. I'm very romantic. So this is it. I'm going to dedicate this to my sister Claudia, who's not here. It's her birthday. She wasn't able to come. And so I love her very much. I wanted to maybe just put, she said, record it for me if you can. So I'm going to try and do that. If you can, I think only the only thing I have is that memo thing. My brother's phone.
Memo, I can like, talking about like record you?
Well, just so that she can hear what I said. Yeah, so you can do the video. Yeah. So, I just want to say that I like to do many things. And one of those things that I like to do is write poetry. But I think more than ever, the red thread through my life has been community activism. Yeah, with people. And as you all know, we still need to keep that going. I can say locally, I'm one of the co-founders of the Esperanza. So as always, if you're not already a monthly donor, do that. And you can go from tonight and just go to the website and start donating every month. San Antonio really needs it, we all need it, okay? So, my plan was to come to Norway. I'm now retired. I worked, in the job. And my plan was to come here in February and stay with my brother at his house, which is the home of my mother and father, and to be here for like 2 months or so. But what happened is that my brother suddenly, this is my older brother, suddenly passed away in November, so I've been here since then. And as the poets before me mentioned, there's something that connects us to life with death. So that actually the first poem I'm going to read is written about my brother, my older brother. If my brother was alive, if my brother was alive, if my brother was alive, he'd be sitting there. He would not drink a beer or wine or a tequila. He would hold a glass, hold a glass, hold a glass of Coca-Cola, because he is of that generation. He would be wanting a hamburger. He'd bring his shyness to the table and look around at every pretty woman here. Then he'd turn around to listen to my words, not quite his style, but he'd listen, because right here his sister was standing. And like so many other times like this, we recognized something fused. Something fused of each other, in each other. We would see circles of these lost bits of ourselves. During the COVID time, I had a wonderful time listening to a lot of poets being interviewed. The wonderful thing about YouTube and the things like that, the internet, and listening to poets read their work, or other good readers read the work of good poets. So I came across someone I didn't know about, an Italian poet who lived from, I think it's 1902 to 1950. His name is Cesare Pavese. And sometimes when I listen to the rhythm of other poets, I start getting a rhythm inside of myself, and then I want to express that in words. So, this is called Sitting on the Wooden Porch While Listening to Cesare Pavese. Oh, it's been a while since I've paid attention to sounds, rhythms, punctuation. It's been a while I have paid attention to poetry. Oh, not the kind which lives in the sky, or is heard in the alt tones of forest birds lifting from the racket. Today there is a medley of the poetics of life coming from the stench of the old gray rug hung over the porch rail, drying right next to where I am sitting. It has the musty memory of everyone's old shoes, wiping themselves clean upon it, and then followed by the smell left by the paws of many dogs. A muddy mixture of the sounds also of family voices, people who have entered, mixed with dirt and deer droppings dug up by the field mice. Thank you. Yay! I lived 12 years in the forest, so I've got a lot of stuff in there. Okay, and then I thought I'd do like a San Antonio poem. Preservation's close borders. Some of us must still be Mexican. If not, history crumbles into dust, and Spanish spoken at the cradle dies as a cry in the memory of the portraited child. The Aztec, Olmec, Toltec in museums appear, head shapes, embroideries, throwing hair and almond-shaped eyes, feathers, figures, rituals, the depth of sun-baked brown skin. How much more display space waits behind the glass under spotlights? Opening hours for a discontinuous life? Sorry, we are always closed on Mondays. Someone has to still be Mexican on this side of the Rio Grande too. I hear las canciones through the tiny screen door holes, afternoons on Calle Escuela. I pick up 3 dozen right off the comal while you wait service, 9 a.m. at Esparza's Tortilleria, sending the kids al tiendita. En la esquina, and I buy chorizo at Maria Lola's sawdust floor store. My papa stops at the Godoy for Saturday morning pan dulce, empanadas con camote, polderones, capuchanas, y bolillos. That name we used for those gringos. Too many of us might become. And Papa gives me the pilon. Well, unless, por eso, some of us will still be Mexican. If not, my haunted heart of the color red, with orange and pink fluttering, the glitter of my passions, soul gold and silver flashing, seething foam, while Gulf green leaps into turquoise. My hope, with determined wings, boasts blues, the azules of my open sky. Anywhere I travel, leave my mark, have a say, setting molds for my unknown future, reinstating the scattered history of children's lives, children who now are our fathers, our mothers, the abuelos, with solid hearts. We inherit their shadows and their sons. I cannot let the Mexican go into a weepy dream behind a cloud. How do? On this side of the river, we speak, move, feel in Mexican too. So that's my San Antonio one. And, I have one call. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Because this one is, you'll know why I want you to hear this one. Okay. It's also written listening to something Adrian Rich was reading. Adrian Rich, American poet from 1929 to 2012. This brown skin, just brown enough to be noticeably not white, not brown enough to be seen as who I am. Texas, Mexican, Indian, Spanish, Tejana, Arab. Daughter of global haunted hearts and hidden haunted histories, surreal stories pollinated with reality. Fly like white projectiles, like dandelion seed, landed in a stranger's field in the northern forest, next to badgers, woodpeckers, racket, and high grass by creeks, which sing bold rhythms after torrential summer rains, soaking the ground, sending soggy, soothing moisture which I tread through as I pause, alone, a stranger in my own life. But not once do I ever take water and the earth for granted.
respect, get it from the main line.
There you go. Wow, it's inspiring. I wanted to concentrate on family and kinships because this has all been about family and kinships. My stay here intensely the past 3.5 months. It was not only the home of my brothers that we needed to close down, but it was the home of my parents that we closed down. So, my God, talk about memories, right? So, this is the last one I'm going to read. And it is called I Am in Love. I am in love with this evening in the light of this cafe. In love with this, seeing you, listening on a Saturday of ordinary things. I am full of ordinary things, and I am glad to share whatever ordinary you have. For New Year's this year, 2022, the time was there to throw out old things and memories of a home. Some landed on the wayside, and some landed in your house, dear friends. You received ordinary things from the trunk of my car into the trunk of your car. And maybe we looked like drug dealers or caravan sellers selling wares along curbsides. Good news came and flew by on wings of these egrets I see here, your cormorants and those old gray black speckled swans I see on the banks of Woodlawn Lake. I just think they're pretty, and they only love me for the breadcrumbs or oats that I give them, that I might bring them, but I don't. I have been an archaeologist going through my brother's home, which used to be my mother's home to my son's grandparents. The home that they know here in this city is gone. And it is the ordinary things there, like that red metal casserole lid, or the little fat, small, round comal, or that clay bean pot blackened by smoke and flames. That nobody knew what to do with this, but the big metal Kool-Aid pitcher, all banged up and wrinkled at the bottom, but it still stands, like us, a little wrinkled and banged up at the bottom. We stand, we laugh, and we love. Thank you.
Well, I know we have some other people in here that...
David Rice again.
David wants to go back up? David, you seriously want to come back up here?
We want him.
We're drinking.
Okay, well, I just know that for some people, you never know. I live one day at a time. If this is, this could be my last open mic. I live life to the fullest. No, I really believe it. You never know. So if anybody wants to get up. Okay. All right. Go.
Start over.
My name is Juliana Chavez, and I will be reading Why Am I So Brown by Trinidad Sandoval.
Hey, Trinidad!
Julie, don't be shy, speak up, because we can't hear back here.
Loud.
We're old.
Question to Chicanita sometimes ask, will others wonder, why is the sky blue or the grass so green? Why am I so brown? God made you brown, mija, color branza, color of your raza, connecting you to your raíces, your story, historia. As you begin moving towards your future. God made you brown, mija, color bronza, beautiful, strong, reminding you of the goodness de tu mamá, de tu abuelas, y tu antepasados. God made you brown, mija, to wear as a crown for your royalty, a princess, la raza nueva, the people of the sun. It is the color of Chicana women, leaders, madres, of Chicano warriors, luchando por la paz y la dignidad de la justicia de la haciendo as one. God wants you to understand brown is not a color. It is a state of a very human texture, alive and full of song, celebrating, dancing to the new world, which is for everyone. Finally, mija, God made you brown because it is one of her favorite colors.
I'm Eliana Chavez, and I'm going to be reading a poem called I'm From a Place that I wrote. I'm from a mom who is working in a place where it's all men leading. A dad who is first-generation American with immigrant parents. A good-sized house in the suburbs of San Antonio. I'm from a brown-skinned, brown-eyed, and kind of short family. I'm from the neighborhoods where you can trust most of your neighbors and where I was able to go in the front yard by myself. I'm from an accepting, loving, caring, and adventurous family. A family who travels a lot, and from you can do better and don't say you can't, and be yourself. From people at a restaurant talking to my dad in Spanish and my mom in English, where I'm expected to speak a certain language. I'm from a family who has overcome the death of people we love, and I am from push yourself even more than you are to get ahead. Thank you.
Hope everybody got your orders in. I hope that was a great intermission. And we've got a few more. We're not done. We are not done by any means whatsoever. We're still going. We're still feeling. We're still showing the love and the talent of San Antonio, Texas. And if everybody can maybe, grab a seat, get comfortable for the next poets that are going to be going up. We've got some more talent in the house, so thank you everybody for showing up and having a good time with us.
All right, good evening again, those hermanos. My name is Don Mathis, Dionysus Don Mathis. Dionysus is the Greek god of wine, merriment, madness, and the theater. Speaking of theater, today is Global Movie Day. Global Movie Day. So your choice. We got a poem, we got a story about a movie, or about coronavirus. Movie? Movie. All right.
Forget that virus.
All right, yeah, forget that virus, man. I'm ready for that vacation to be over. All right, according to the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, Global Movie Day is today. Just in time, just around the corner from the Academy Awards. To celebrate, cinephiles are encouraged to reminisce about their most memorable movie house, Texas Theater, or their most admired actor, or their favorite film. I've always been partial to musicals, and I was practically raised on World War II movies. So for a long time, South Pacific was my favorite film. I gained a new appreciation for it 30 years later when I found out it was written by James Michener. Nonetheless, South Pacific took a backseat after Cabaret was released 50 years ago. Cabaret has ballads and minstrels and marches and jazz and love and war and comedy and suspense. And it has an assortment of literary devices from allegory to zoomorphism. Imagery and irony collaborate with foreshadowing flashbacks, metaphor and motifs merge with satire and symbolism. Cabaret gives insight on how the spread of an oppressive ideology, in this case Nazism, crept into a society. And it normalizes the peculiarities and eccentricities of the Berlin nightclub circuit of the 1930s. Although the film was released 50 years ago, analogies to today's politics abound. The audience in the cabaret and in the theater is instructed to leave your troubles outside. And I learned I could leave job worries at work. I realized I could leave emotional baggage at home. Sally Bowles runs to the train trestle with her reluctant lover and yells at the top of her lungs as the train passes over. Brian Roberts stands amazed at her primal scream. It is a release of frustration and fear, a celebration of exuberance and life. I identify with Sally. I harmonize with her howl. This film gives a perspective of tyranny and serves as an assessment of indifference. Cabaret encourages me to embrace freedom, to be less judgmental, and to dance in the celebration of life. Singer Liza Minnelli asked the question, what good is sitting alone in your room? Indeed, the time from cradle to tomb is not that long. I always hope to follow her suggestion to sample the wine, to hear the music, to live to the fullest. Come to the cabaret. All right. I got something for coffee lovers. Anybody like coffee? All right, let's go back to you. When I was a little pup, Grandma would splash coffee in my cup of milk, and I would drink it up. One of the things she'd admire most was to take a piece of toast and baptize it in a Maxwell's roast. As she sat there drinking her coffee, her eyes twinkling, God knows what she was thinking. It was almost like a ritual, partly habit, partly mystical, down to earth, but also spiritual. Now I'm old, but I can see how that kind of memory has helped define the present me. As I grew a little older, I liked my coffee a little bolder, and soon I let my brain to filters. I'd run it through the filter twice just to make it hot and nice, but still the taste would not suffice. I would grind the beans a little rough, but I couldn't get enough of that. And so I tried that espresso stuff. I knew it was probably wrong until I liked my coffee super strong, so it wasn't very long. I began to see little critters running around caffeine chippers and have to bring it back 3 liters. One side effect for my fixation was the pleasures of caffeination and my favorite hallucination. Sometimes the cup itself would hop down from the shelf with the legs of a tiny elf and fill itself from the coffee pot, nice and steaming, screaming hot, and then it would actually trot with style, elegance, and flair, leaping wild without a care. My cup runneth over to my chair. Thank you.
All right, well, that was really good. You're something else, Bob. So am I. Because for years, I've been up against the ropes in a fight where I never had a coach. Cut to pieces. Some take the last resort like Papa Roach. No wedding, no birthday, just a eulogy. I'm there for you because you're there for me. Real love, true empathy. Unlike those living life in a bubble. No heart, no respect for the struggle. Another day in the matrix. We 9 to 5 grind for these paychecks. It's that time of the month. Rent's due, no playtext. They say, Sean, no, you can't say this. But I say it anyway. That's how I make enemy. That's how friend turned to frenemy. Now I know why they're mad at me. What I thought was my corner was just a peanut gallery. But I knew there had to be something bigger than me. But it's been so long since I've seen the pastor. Done wrong, so I'm bound down like, yes, master. He says, what's your mission? I said salvation, but his, it's a greedy status war of attrition. They said, where's the fruit in your life? I said, where's the truth in your strife? You prayed for Ruth, but got Jezebel for a wife. I'll know better in all this, I confess. Lipstick on a pig, that's me on my Sunday best. And still I throw pearls at swine. Thankful I can't turn water to wine, because if I did, it'd be too good of a time. But still I sing, this little light of mine. Everybody now, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, I thought you knew this. See, I didn't have to do this. I shouldn't have to prove this. To make a point, I'll flood the streets. Frank Lucas. They wonder what's gotten into me. They say it's toxic masculinity. No, to not flex is just a sin to me. And I don't want to pretend to be someone I'm not. But if you got dreams and I got plans, go execute them, get them stacks in your hands so I can walk up to the party and say, my man. Let's talk about integrity. Where is it at when everybody's trying to be celebrity on the road to fortune and fame? That's the influencer game. That's why most influencers lame. I'm still the same. I'm still a G. American gangster Sean Z. She was supposed to go next, but I just had to flex.
Hi, I'm going to be reading 11 by Sandra Cisneros. What they don't understand about birthdays and what they never tell you is that when you're 11, you're also 10, and 9, and 8, and 7, and 6, and 5, and 4, and 3, and 2, and 1. And when you wake up on your 11th birthday, you expect to feel 11, but you don't. You open your eyes and everything's just like yesterday, only it's today. And you don't feel 11 at all. You feel like you're still 10. And you are. underneath the year that makes you 11. Like, some days you might say something stupid, and that's the part of you that's still 10. Or maybe some days you might need to sit on your mama's lap because you're scared, and that's the part of you that's still 5. And maybe, one day when you're all grown up, maybe you'll need to cry, like if you're 3. And that's okay too. That's what I tell my mom when she's sad and she needs to cry. Maybe she's feeling 3. Because the wave world is kind of like an onion, or like the rings inside of the tree trunk, or like my little wooden dolls that fit one inside the other, each year inside the next one. That's how being 11 years old is like. You don't feel 11. Not right away. It takes a few days, weeks even, sometimes even months before you say 11 when they ask you. And you don't feel smart 11. Not until you're almost 12. That's just the way it is. Only today, I wish I didn't have only 11 years old rattling inside me like pennies in a Band-Aid box. Today, I wish I was 102 instead of 11, because if I was 102, I'd have known how to tell. I'd have known what to say when Mrs. Price put the red sweater on my desk. I would have known how to tell her it wasn't mine instead of just sitting there with that look on my face and nothing coming out of my mouth. Whose is this? Miss Price says, and she holds up the red sweater in the air for all the class to see. Whose? It's been sitting in the coat room for a month. Not mine, says everybody, not me. It has to belong to somebody, Miss Price keeps saying, but nobody can remember. It's an ugly sweater with the red plastic buttons and a collar and sleeves all stretched out like you could use it for a jump rope. It's maybe 1,000 years old, and even if it belonged to me, I wouldn't say so. Maybe because I'm skinny, maybe because she doesn't like me. That stupid Sylvia Sanvidad says, I think it belongs to Rachel. An ugly sweater like that, all raggedy and old. But Mrs. Price believes her. Mrs. Price takes the sweater and puts it right on my desk. And when I open my mouth, nothing comes out. You're not mine. I finally say in a little voice that maybe it was me when I was 4. Of course it's yours, Mrs. Price says. I remember you wearing it once. Because she's older and the teacher. And she's right, and of course, I'm not. Not mine, not mine, not mine. But Mrs. Price is already turning to page 32 and the math problem, and I'm still on math problem number 4. I don't know why, but all of a sudden I'm feeling sick inside. Like the part of me that's 3 wants to come out of my eyes, only I squeeze them shut tight and bite down on my teeth real hard and try to remember today I'm 11. 11. My ma is making me a cake for me tonight, and when Papa comes home, everybody will sing happy birthday to you. But when the sick feeling goes away and I open my eyes, the red sweater's still sitting there like a big red mountain. I move the red sweater to the corner of my desk with my ruler. I move my pencil and my books and eraser as far from it as possible. I even move my chair a little to the right. Not mine, not mine, not mine. In my head, I'm thinking, how long till lunchtime? How long till I can take the red sweater and throw it over the schoolyard fence, or leave it hanging on a parking meter, or bunch it up into a little ball and toss it in the alley? Except, when math period ends, Mrs. Price says loud and in front of everybody, "Now, Rachel, that's enough," because she sees I've shoved the red sweater to the tippy corner of my desk and it's hanging all over the edge like a waterfall. But I don't care. "Rachel," Miss Price says. She says it like she's getting mad. "You put that sweater on right now and no more nonsense." "But it's not now," Miss Price says. This is when I wish I wasn't 11, because all those years inside of me, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1, are pushing at the back of my eyes when I put one arm through one sleeve of the sweater that smells like cottage cheese, and then the other arm through the other, and stand there with my arms apart like if the sweater hurts me. And it does. It's all itchy and full of germs that aren't even mine. That's when everything I've been holding in since the morning, since when Mrs. Price put the sweater on my desk, finally lets go. And all of a sudden, I'm crying in front of everybody. I wish I was invisible, but I'm not. I'm 11, and it's my birthday today, and I'm crying like I'm 3 in front of everybody. I put my head down on the desk and bury my face in the stupid clown sweater arms. My face is all hot and spit coming out of my mouth because I can't stop the little animal noises from coming out of me until there aren't any more tears left in my eyes, and it's just my body shaking like when you have the hiccups, and my whole head hurts like it's when you drink milk too fast. But the worst part is right before the bell rings for lunch, that stupid Phyllis Lopez, who is even dumber than Sylvia Navidad, says she remembers that the red sweater is hers. I take it right off, right away, give it to her. Only Mrs. Price pretends like everything's okay, everything's fine. Today, I'm 11. There's a cake my ma's making for me tonight, and when Papa comes home from work, we'll eat it. There will be candles and presents, and everyone will sing, happy birthday to you, Rachel." Only it's too late. I'm 11 today. I'm 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. But today, I wish I was 102. I wish I was anything but 11, because I want today to be far away already. Far away like a runaway balloon. Like a tiny O in the sky. So tiny, tiny. You have to close your eyes to see it. Thanks.
That was so good. No, it was so good because I got a little emotional because I thought about my niece, 14 years old, just going through some drama.
You're allowed.
Yes. That part, yes. Yes. Okay, well, anybody else? Anybody else? We're kind of at the point where we're just rolling with it. If you want a little break to hang out or talk or catch up, that's cool too. If you want to come up here, come talk to me. We've got a couple people that, maybe still want to go. So we're still here, we're just hanging You can't hear me?
10-minute break. 10-minute break.
That's cool.
10-minute break.
10 minutes.